He was born on land that did not belong to him, under a sky that did not ask his name. The first thing he learned was the sound of dirt being pressed flat by boots, and the second was silence. Silence was safety. Silence meant survival. His mother used to hum at night, barely loud enough to exist. The tune had no words by the time it reached him. Whatever language it once lived in had been beaten out of it long before he was born. But the rhythm stayed, slow, repeating. Like footsteps returning from far away. She told him stories without stories, directions without maps. She would say things like, "If you walk toward where the sun dies, the air gets heavier," or "The river bends because it is tired of going straight." She never explained why she knew these things. She never explained how. Knowledge, like names, was dangerous to keep. The plantation spread wider than any child could understand. Fields rolled into forests, forests folded into swamps, and the swamps swallowed sound. Men disappeared into those trees sometimes. Most never came back. The overseers said the land ate them. His mother said the land remembered them. He learned early that the world spoke constantly, but only if you watched long enough. The sun did not rise randomly. Shadows were not accidents. Birds did not fly without reason. Even pain had patterns. When he worked the fields, he counted steps without counting. When he carried water, he noted how long his breath lasted between trips. When he rested, he watched the angle of the sun crawl across the ground. By the time he was 10, he could walk blindfolded from the quarters to the far barn without touching a wall. No one taught him this. No one was allowed to. At night, when exhaustion should have drowned thought, his mind stayed awake. He stared upward through broken roofs and watched the stars rearrange themselves slowly across seasons. He noticed that some never moved. He noticed others traced silent arcs. He noticed that the sky was a map that no one could burn. He did not know the word north. He only knew that one star never ran away. They called him Isaiah because they needed something to call him. It was not his name. He did not answer to it inside himself. Inside, he was only watching. Years passed. Bodies aged faster than land. Whips learned familiar paths across backs. And Isaiah learned the plantation the way a blind man learns a face. He knew every slope, every low point where water collected, every place where sound traveled farther than it should. He knew which trees leaned east and which leaned west. He knew where fog settled first and where it lifted last. When new overseers arrived, they got lost. They would curse maps drawn by men who had never walked the land. They would argue about roads that no longer existed. They would swear the river should be closer than it was. Isaiah never spoke unless spoken to. One afternoon, a wagon overturned near the northern tree line. Supplies spilled into mud. Horses panicked. The overseer shouted directions that made no sense. Isaiah moved without thinking. He redirected the men, angled the wagon downhill instead of fighting the slope, and got it upright before the shouting could turn into blows. The overseer stared at him for a long moment. Then he asked carefully how Isaiah knew. Isaiah said nothing. Silence was safety, but the question lingered. Not long after, a white man arrived with boots too clean for the road. He carried folded papers in frustration. He walked the land with anger, turning maps over and over as if they were lying to him personally. That night, Isaiah was brought to the main house. He stood with his head down. The man spoke about distances, about rivers, about time wasted marching in circles. He asked questions without looking at Isaiah's face. Isaiah answered without lifting his eyes. He described the land as it was, not as it had been drawn. He spoke of curves and rises, of soft ground and hard. He spoke of where sound echoed and where it died. He spoke of shortcuts that were not roads and roads that were traps. The man listened. The next day, troops moved differently. They reached places faster. They avoided waterlogged ground. No one said Isaiah's name. They never gave him paper. They never gave him ink. They never gave him a compass because tools could be taken. Knowledge could not. War crept closer. The land changed again. Trees fell where they had stood for centuries. Smoke rewrote the horizon. Cannons taught the ground new sounds. Soldiers came and went, each one believing the map in his hand was truth. When it failed, they came at night. Isaiah became a shadow consulted in whispers. He never sat. He never touched instruments. He spoke and they listened, and then they left, pretending he had not existed. He began to understand something dangerous. They needed him. Need was power. And power, when discovered, was punished. He learned to be precise but invisible, helpful but forgettable. He gave just enough truth to guide, never enough to be noticed. Freedom came like a rumor before it came like a fact. When it did arrive, it was loud, confusing, and incomplete. Papers were signed. Names were written. Promises were spoken by men already turning away. Isaiah left the plantation without ceremony. He walked toward the place where the sun rose differently. He had no map, no compass, no proof of what he had done. He did not need them. The land still spoke. The sky still remembered him, and he still knew the way.